Hello, and welcome to the South Coast Artists Index, where artists, performers, and writers, as well as curators, directors, and supporters, anyone with ties to the creative community, drops by to introduce themselves to you. We'll talk about their beginnings, their vision, their passion, and so much more. The South Coast Artist Index podcast is brought to you in part by Heavenly Spirits, who invites you to celebrate the art of life and creative communities everywhere. Learn more at heavenlyspirits.com.
Hi, this is Ron Fortier with another episode of the In Focus podcast. I believe this is episode 112, and I feel like I've been waiting for at least 110 episodes to get this individual on this show. But he's a very, very busy guy. And this episode is brought to you in part by the great folks, our sponsors at Heavenly Spirits Imports. And it's also grant supported by the Mass Cultural Council, as well as our local cultural council in New Bedford. And without further ado, I'm going to ask our guests to introduce themselves and to spell their name for us.
Hi, everyone. My name is Peter Andrade, Peterandbrade.
Just a dumb question. And it's the first time I thought of it. I've known you for a long time. Do people ever ask you like, is Andrade your first name or your last? Do they get confused because there's two first names in some places, you know?
Sometimes I'll get called Andrew, or sometimes they'll kind of Andre. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That happens.
It brings me back to the first intern I had, whose name was Anne Margaret, and they kept asking. I'll always think about her. They say, "Well, what's your last name?" She said, "Margaret." No, that's your middle name. Well, it's my name. I should pretty much know what my name is. Yeah. Well, what's your middle name? I don't have a middle name.
Yeah, I hear you.
It just rolls on. So Peter is the facilities manager, plant manager, building manager. All the above.
Yeah, pretty much. Just whatever it needs to be at that point in time. Property manager.
Property manager. Yeah, this is one I knew. Give us a little background on your background. Start from day one, which does it go even before the Lefkowitz family and Furniture City, or does it pretty much start there?
Starts there pretty much. Yeah, it goes back about 33 years, which is long enough for sure. But yeah, it starts basically at Furniture City. Basically, I was a kid in high school. You know what I mean? Got a part-time job there. A friend of mine was working there already. They were looking for some part-time help at night as a kid. I was like, okay, yeah. Started making $5 an hour, basically. And that was above minimum wage at the time, you know? You know what I mean? I'm dating myself, but yeah, it goes back a little bit. And it was fun. It was a great job, especially as a young kid, moving furniture. All you wanted to do is just work, you know what I mean? Pick up furniture, heavy stuff, and just move it from one place to another. So it kind of worked out well for me. I was going to New Bedford Voc at the time, doing carpentry in the carpentry division. Did that for a little bit after high school. But, the carpentry kind of went, it was a tough time in the early 90s. Didn't do that for very long. This wasn't really working out. Worked from there, started working full time at the Furniture City in the warehouse. And it basically developed from there. Positions opened up, timing, being at the right place at the right time, positions opened up, became the warehouse manager. I was like 21 years old when the warehouse management position opened up, became that at 21. And then basically progressed from there. Just continue different things opened up, customer service, management, combination with the warehouse. So it just progressed from there basically to the point where eventually I just became the plant manager, building manager, property manager, whatever you want to call it. Titles really don't really matter. You know what I mean? It's just what needs to be done gets done, and that's what it is. So.
Well, Steve and Larry Lefkowitz must have really liked you. I mean, they were my father's clients, customers for his janitorial contracting service. He used to do both of their homes, and that's how I got to know them. And then Steve was a member of the NFIB, the National Federation for Independent Businesses,
Yep.
of which my father's cousin, my second cousin, his first cousin, Florence Boisvert of Boisvert Insurance, I think she had like a 2-digit membership number. And that's how I really got to know Steve. And I forgot what it I think it was just coincidental that Steve called me up. This is just before the Colo Colo Gallery was, I guess evicted from the Center Street location they had, which was a beautiful, beautiful space and location. As Luis Villanueva, the curator, gallery owner, artist, told me, he says, I was in a shower, the phone rang. He says, who answers the phone when you're in a shower? He said, but something told me to answer the phone. And he got the news, hey, we just sold the building. You got to get out of there in X amount of time. So rolling back before that, Steve was like, the furniture business really sucks. I spoke to, I can't remember Albert's name, but he said, we've been talking, and the furniture business is about building furniture stores, not selling furniture. It's the weirdest thing. And Larry's in Florida. He doesn't want any part of it. And what do you think I should do? So I said, well, you've got Hatch Street. They've got 60 something artists there. And I hear good and bad, like you do from every place. And I said, and a friend of mine, Jim Charette, who was one of the tenants here, he was in the Gunboat Gallery. Some people thought he was a wild man and crazy and so on and so forth. And he was, and he would probably say he was, and still is in some ways.
He was very counterculture. Yeah, he was.
But also very intelligent and very observant.
Oh, tremendously.
And
yes.
What ticked him off was the studio tours. And he basically said, hey, what are we over here? Yeah. And he really, a lot of people were very upset with him because he called out faculty members and saying, hey, you guys have nice cushy jobs and you have nice, beautiful studios. And, I can't afford that. I'm living hand to mouth over here. So I had the conversation with Jim, and then I went to Steve, and I spoke with Steve, and I said, call the mayor. I remember when he first got elected, a lot of people were saying, if you've seen the mayor's office, it's loaded with artwork. It's all his. This is going to be good, So I said, call him up, tell him you want new sidewalks, and, we'll do something to the front of the building and start leasing out spaces. Well, about a week after I had that meeting with him, Luis calls me and says, hey, guess what happened? He told me the story about being in the shower. So I said, go see Steve Lefkowitz. So he did, calls me up. Luis calls me back and goes, Ron, I can't believe it. It was phenomenal. The guy's like, if I wanted the walls covered in gold, he would have done it. He says, and then the guy who takes care of everything for him, oh my God, Peter, that guy's amazing. He was just, how high do you want it? How wide do you want it? All that stuff. So he was really, really psyched. And obviously, Cola pulled in. I guess he was officially, the starting gun for the whole thing. I mean, there were other artists in there. But
he brought it to the next level for sure.
Yeah. So that's where you take over the story, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, the original artist that was in the building, she was there for quite a while. Her husband owned Nutex, which is a manufacturing company in the back part of the building, was Judith Klein. Mm-hmm. She was there. She actually had a studio downtown, from what I understand, for many years.
On William Street.
A gallery. Yeah, a gallery. But her studio, where she actually created, was actually in the back building of our property, where Nutex operated on the third floor. Her husband at one time carved out like a room for her, not a little one, but a decent sized room for her to create her artwork there. So she was the original, basically the very first artist in the Kilburn Mill, basically. And then from there, Jim Charette, as you touched upon, was basically one of the next people. And he, as you said, as you mentioned, kind of counterculture, but very intelligent, very art driven, very, art is for the people, art is for the common person. It shouldn't be just those that can afford high priced artwork. It should be for the common person. Very, very grassroots, down to earth kind of approach to things. And it was kind of refreshing and down to earth, that, a guy with tremendous art, class, went to school for art. You know what I mean? He, that's his passion. That's his way of being, is very art oriented. Even to this day, he's no longer a tenant, hasn't been part of the Kilburn Mill for quite some time.
He was ill for a bit there. But...
Yeah, he was. Yeah. But he's still very art oriented. I still follow him on Facebook. You know what I mean? I see a lot of his artwork, and he's still very art oriented, very, very focused on his artwork. And it's great to see him. Then also we had another gentleman, Jeff Stryker, who was in there. I mean, talented, self-taught sculpturist, artist. I actually have quite a couple pieces of his artwork, and Jim Charette's also, that I personally own myself. I appreciate, I'm not very artistic, but I'm a very much so an appreciator of art. You know what I mean? And when it's a genuine piece, when I see that a person, poured their heart and soul into creating a piece of artwork, how can you not respect that? You know what I mean? I really do have an appreciation and of art, in general. So it was great to have these guys in there, the original.
Right. You had Judith Klein, who was a traditionally trained artist and ran a traditional practice, and of course you had Jim, who's also, he's a Swain student. But you also had Jeff Bunier. You had Stryker, who was he was a musician basically. You had Randy Gagnon, was he there as well? What you had, were you talking about counterculture? So you had mostly the street guys, Boston Maki.
Vic Jones.
Vic
Jones. So the so-called barbarians, art barbarians. He was part of the part of the countercultural. Jeff Stryker, Jim Charette, Vic Jones. Jones is actually still a tenant of the building. Jones and Stryker, actually, he was away for quite a bit. Recently came back. You know what I mean? He's having some health issues, so he unfortunately was able to had to leave his studio. But just recently he was a tenant of ours here at the Kilburn. So it's a lot of the old schools are still around, and I'm happy and glad to see that they're still creating tremendous artwork out there.
So when Luis came in, and I began another chapter, and then unfortunately, and I'm wouldn't be at liberty, and it's totally up to you as well. Steve Lefkowitz sold the building. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, actually, for the age of the building, the building was basically opened up for what once was a thread mill, basically a spinning mill, 1905. Miraculous, or surprisingly, for the age of the building, there's been basically 3 ownership groups that have owned. The original ownership group or the company that was the thread company, the spinning company, that basically went up until about the late 40s, from what I understand, from what I've read and from what I've been told. Then from there, the Lefkowitz family, their father, or Steve Lefkowitz's father, purchased the building in 1952. He basically transplanted his family from New York and came over to New Bedford, bought the building, and still basically ran the building more textile oriented. They did blankets, they did filaments for old televisions that were made out of fabric at one time. They also created carpeting and things of that nature. From there, they transitioned from manufacturing, because it became more and more difficult competing with the southern states as far as the tax credits and things like that those states were offering companies. They were solicited multiple times by different states, I should say, to transplant their company down to the South, and they stood firm, and they wanted to maintain and stay with their business here in the Northeast. But as the years and years went by, they saw the writing on the wall that it was increasingly more difficult to compete with manufacturing with companies that were down south. So they transitioned from basically manufacturing of carpeting and then transitioned into more of the retail end of things. And then from there, from retail of carpeting, then transitioned into retail of furniture. And that's basically how Furniture City, a lot of people still even remember or even recognize the mill as Furniture City. Slowly, you know what I mean, and gradually we're kind of phasing that out and creating our own identity as far as the Kilburn Mill and what we are today. But there's still some people that still recognize that, oh, that's where the old Furniture City furniture store was at one time. Yeah, absolutely. That's where we are. Come on down and see
you
us.
can't think of it without Furniture City package pricing.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Those are Larry's kids, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. The southern part of the building, the southernmost part of the building above the antiques area, Madewell Manufacturing used to be up there. And I think,
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember what hurricane it was, but it took out that whole floor, that whole section, which is amazing.
Yeah, and you know, and from a disaster came an opportunity, basically. You know what I mean? It was in the 50s. I remember Steve mentioning about how even before the hurricane, Barry, and that hurricane that actually took off a part of the building, you know, facilitated the Army Corps of Engineers creating the hurricane barriers around the New Bedford, the peninsula, and in the harbor. It was, I forget what exact year, but it was in the 50s. It was in the 56, 58, something like that.
Yeah, that's probably the last. Donna Carroll, one of those. It was like one of the last big ones. And then I was living on Mott Street, across from the Cornell Duvalier, just before Rodney French East. And I saw them building the wall, the dike, which was amazing. That had to be like 64, 65, somewhere around there. So Steve sold the building, obviously. Where do we go from there? Is it the Murrays? I never get that right. The new family that bought it.
Yeah, it's basically an ownership group of two individuals, you know, and it's they bought it it's going to be, actually it's coming up on the anniversary. It's coming up on the 4-year anniversary at the end of May. So in a few months, it's going to be 4 years that this current ownership group has possessed the building. And quite honestly, to tell you the truth, the time of the Lefkowitzes had come and gone. They had been looking to sell the property for some years previous to the past 4 years. None of their children basically wanted to take over the building. And quite honestly, I don't blame them. You know what I mean? These buildings are tremendous. You know what I mean? They probably will never be replicated as far as what they're constructed and how they're constructed. But they're a daunting building to manage, to maintain. So like I said, their time had come and gone. And thankfully, this ownership group saw the potential in the building. And we touched upon it just briefly just now about that hurricane in the 50s or so that took off a portion of the building. I was giving them a tour around the building, showing them what the building is, and kind of opened up a doorway that we had to the portion of the building that basically blew off back in the day. And they saw the unbelievable view of Buzzards Bay and Clark's Cove, and they were like, oh my God, the potential in this place is tremendous as far as what we can do. They had a vision, you know what I mean? They saw past the leaky roof, this old sewing machines from days gone by, of all the stitching shops that were there, just the abandoned equipment, things of that nature. They saw all past all that, thankfully, and they saw the potential in this place for years and years. You know what I mean? One of the things that I've always thought that Kilburn had was the potential to be a destination point in New Bedford. It had the tremendous views. It had the easy ability to get to straight off of Route 18, straight down. You know what I mean? It to give someone directions how to get to the building, to the Kilburn, very simple. Come off of 195, stay straight. You go through X amount of lights. Where the building on the right, the last building, as you see the hurricane barrier on the right. You know what I mean? Pretty straightforward, pretty easy. Yeah. So
I mean, the D word, the destination,
Yeah.
and that, Luis and I had long conversations about the difference between where his gallery was downtown and in the South End, on West Ronnie French Boulevard, and it's not exactly a destination. Even when I was a kid, it was actually almost like an isolated community. South
Yeah.
Water Street was a rival to downtown. In fact, it was almost like another whole other New Bedford, but this was back in the 60s, mid 60s. And even further south from the mill, further south, Hazelwood Park, all town, that was like almost rural.
Yeah.
You had the poor farm down there, you had the beaches, or how people used to pronounce it back then, municipal beach. Municipal, yeah, not municipal, municipal beach. And it was also a French enclave. They had City Councilman Saulnier, I believe was his name. He was almost like the de facto mayor of the South End. Community pharmacy was City Hall.
It's amazing how the city was broken up into sections back then. It was, you know what I mean? And even, if Spinner magazine, for example, they have a lot of the archival photographs, and I was able to get a hold of a pictorial book that they had, and I saw pictures of the Kilburn Mill pre-expansion. There has been some back in 1910. They actually did some additions onto the building, and I had seen some pre-addition and post-addition, and it's like the neighborhood was, like you said, very rural, very open spaces that it's night and day compared to what it is today. And it's just odd to look at something like that. You see what's there presently, and then you see an old picture of what it once was, and it does. It's a little surreal to kind of look at those things. So
a lot of people too don't realize that New Bedford is a peninsula city.
Yeah.
Fall River is a crossroads city. Every major artery, highway goes through Fall River. So you're always passing through it, going east, west, north, south. New Bedford is, and people use this as a negative thing, because I think it's funny, it's a terminal city. In other words, you have to need or want to be here for whatever reason.
Yeah.
You don't drive through it, you have to drive into it, and you have to drive out of it. But obviously the South End is the most, once you get past Brock Avenue, no, it's not Brock Avenue, that runs north and south, Cove, Cove. Once you get past south of Cove, there's no east-west.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to go down around the back,
Yeah, it's kind of like a curse and a blessing, though, because honestly, some of the most beautiful parts of New Bedford is on that peninsula.
Mm-hmm.
With the views of the south of direct views of Buzzards Bay. I look at it as a more positive than negative, just because of every day when I can go up there and just see the most beautiful sunset, unbelievable sunsets from our event center right now.
Mm-hmm.
You look out on a clear day, you see straight out to the Elizabethan Islands, and right behind that, it's Martha's Vineyard, and straight out to the Atlantic Ocean. So you have unbelievable views, unbelievable, beauty in the city of New Bedford. And you're correct in saying that, New Bedford in and out type of thing. But I also look at it from a different sense of view, that New Bedford has so much potential. Sometimes it gets a very bad rap for legitimate reasons, but at other times, not legitimate reasons. New Bedford is no different, I don't think, than any other city that its size. And it has so much tremendous potential. It has we have every form of transportation available to us. We have our airport, a municipal airport. We have we have train tracks and train that's finally coming in after all these years. We have an interstate highway, 195, that goes right through the heart of the city. You have a bustling port. You have the richest fishing port in the United States, right here in New Bedford. It has so much potential. I mean, thankfully, your podcast is more art driven, which thankfully the current administration is very arts oriented, very embracing of the arts, and has been. So it's got so much potential. I'm always more of a positive outlook kind of thinker in seeing the potential in different things, but New Bedford is tremendous. It has tremendous potential and tremendous possibilities and endless, really, endless possibilities.
Well, thanks for the segue opportunity, because that's, we're getting now into the nitty gritty of the art world. I mean, they had Hatch Street up the north end.
Yeah.
And they had the Rope Works, which was a minor player, probably for a different kind of more established artist. But here comes the new owners of the Kilburn Mill, and all of a sudden there's this massive explosion. I mean, there are artists. I mean, every time you turn over a rock, there's another one. I mean, and I'm saying that because I'm an artist. I mean, it's like people ask how many artists are in the city. It's like, I don't think anybody really knows. There's lots of them.
Yeah, I don't think, yeah, exactly. If you really think about it, how can you attach a number? There's countless artists in the talent. You know what I mean? The talent. I know of the talent that's at the Kilburn Mill, but the talent that's spread throughout the city that I, like I said, we discussed briefly, Jim Charette, Jeff Stryker, Kat Knudsen, you know what I mean? As an example, she was one of very few artists in the world. She worked on the movie Loving Vincent, who created artwork for this major motion picture, who is a tenant of the Kilburn. She's been there for quite a few years. She's been a tenant of the building for quite a few years, and I can't say enough about her talent. John Jameson, another tremendously, gifted artist. Sheila Oliveira. I mean, I can go on, waxing poetically about the art community that's been in just Kilburn, never mind the city itself. Mackey, we touched upon him briefly. Street artist, tremendous artist. That was once there at the Kilburn. And that, like I said, I can speak of those that are here, but that are at the Kilburn, but tremendous art community in the city of New Bedford together, unbelievable.
So the other thing too is that, you spoke about the event center. Some people like, an event center. That I guess a lot of people will say, oh, they're crazy. What the heck is wrong with those people? What, really? Because you're almost like the Fall River's version of the Narrows in New Bedford, I guess, because you've got top ticket entertainment. You turn it into a wedding destination, which tell us all about all that stuff. Yeah,
we stumbled across it goes back to the Whaling Museum. So the Whaling Museum had the Grand Panorama painting, and they were looking for basically a home to showcase and show this masterpiece of artwork that, is tremendous, unbelievable. I saw it firsthand and it's unbelievable. So they were looking to display it. They had spent so much money in restoration of this piece of artwork, priceless piece of artwork, which depicted basically a whaling voyage across the world coming out of the harbor of New Bedford. And it was painted back in the 1800s. And it like I said, it's a priceless piece of artwork. At present, I think it spans over 1,200 feet long. So it's not exactly your average piece of painting. This is something that's a massive piece of painting, 10 foot tall, and like I said, 1,200 feet long. our event center, basically, we created our event center for this piece of artwork. You know, our building is basically about 500, the room that it was in was about 500 feet long. And the painting itself went up and back about 4 times. And that was about 2.5 years ago was when we housed that there on our 3rd floor. And it was there only for a limited engagement. They didn't want it there for an extended period of time, but it was there for a good 6 months or so. And we were fortunate and very lucky to have that there at the Kilburn Mill. But it created something that we weren't even really expecting or anticipating. It created this phenomenal space overlooking Clark's Cove. And we were approached, you know, while the Whaling Museum still had the panorama there, and we were approached by the Meeting Street House Schwartz Center. Hey, what are you guys looking to do? You know, we'd love to have our gala there, Fishing for a Cause. Once the panorama, leaves and you have the space. And it was like, well, I don't know. We didn't really have much plans for the space after that, to tell you the truth. We created it basically for that. We created a phenomenal space, I must say, and they loved it and they saw the potential. They saw the attraction for it, and it tied into their cause as far as being on the water, fishing for a cause, and the fundraiser. Great event, great thing to do. And and then we had that moment of that epiphany moment, that light bulb that turned on. And it was like, hey, maybe we're onto something. Maybe we can do events. Maybe we can do that. And then from there, we started thinking about it. We started advertising, and all of a sudden we got someone interested in hosting their wedding there. And then another event came through, and something else came through, and another more interest in it. And then all of a sudden, people were like, wow, you got the in thing, you got this industrial look, this great space. And it's like, wow, okay, we were trending before we even realized that we were trending, you know what I mean? It's one of the things that we just happened to stumble into, you know, that industrialist kind of look. And it
let's
like
call it organic.
Yeah. I always say it's like one of those rustic, refined spaces. It's a rustic space, but you can make it refined pretty quick. Some uplighting and drapery and different things like that, and you can make it rustic, refined.
Yeah. I mean, and like, as you said, the views from above, plus this, outdoor dining, rooftop dining, and it's still so much more to go. I mean, you've got a bakery cafe.
Dough company.
Yeah, and I'll throw this in because I always say Luis Villanueva, either you love him or you hate him. This and equally as much, And he's like blown away by the food there. I mean, he knows his food.
He's there. He's there. He's one of their frequent customers for sure. You're right. Yeah. I'll go in. I'll grab some lunch myself, and for the most times, 9 out of 10, I see him in there drinking his espresso and his cappuccino or something like that, enjoying himself, doing his artwork, doing it. And quite honestly, you know what I mean? Talking about art and tremendous artists. To tell you the truth, at first, I never realized how that Luis himself was an artist. I always thought him as a gallery owner and someone that was, but I want to say until maybe about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, I honestly didn't realize how talented of an artist he is. I really didn't realize that until I started seeing some of his artwork when he was presenting that to me and showing me his artwork. Says, Luis, I never realized this about you. I really never did.
It's sort of like playful surrealism. It's he's got that little tongue-in-cheek sort of thing going. And some of it's like, then you start looking at it, it's like kind of serious. He's really got a really, serious proposition that he's putting in front of you. But now you've got the event center, you've got the DOCO, the dough company, but everybody shortened it to DOCO. Any other things in the offing that you're allowed to reveal? I heard there's a brewery just waiting for somebody to by
It's
the key, so to
yeah,
speak.
COVID has actually, you know what I mean, changed a lot of things, unfortunately, in the past few years. The past 2 years have been like, did they even really happen or anything? It's like, it kind of, it's like almost pre-COVID and post-COVID, you know what I mean? Even though we're not necessarily out of COVID, but it's like one of those kind of things that the past 2 years has been like, oh, did they even really exist? So, but yeah, it is what it is. So yeah, that kind of COVID has definitely put a damper or a stall on the brewery.
Is
But
that
as far,
a legitimate brewery, or is it that one of those formula? I mean, I don't know all that much about it, but you got the aficionados who are very, stiff upper lip about a certain kind of a brewery versus whatever they call it. It's probably not a nice name. So,
listen, I've tasted both. I'm not a beer connoisseur, but they both taste good to me. So you're, I've sampled both. You're, so it is what it is. At the end of the day, as long as it tastes good, I think that's the most important thing.
So who says it can't go from a formulaic brewery to a traditional one, based on its popularity? And what else is going on? I mean, are they finally going to put in those sidewalks? I heard they were.
Yeah. Believe it or not, it's almost like the train. It's in the South End, especially with us. It's been like it's coming eventually, and it's finally. Yeah, they actually, believe it or not, they had the announcement in our event center not too long ago. We had some state officials come down and they made the formal announcement that we should be sometime this spring, if I'm not mistaken, April-ish, May. They should be doing some formal, the cosmetic and sidewalk across the front of our building, which we are one of the beneficiaries of this project. They're basically tying in the South End project, the sidewalk project, and the south end of the beach area to the 18. They're tying that last gap of area that hasn't been completed. That's finally going to be done this year, from what I understand, out front of our property. So it's our building will definitely get a major facelift for sure.
Will rail come down the peninsula at all?
I don't believe the rail.
Or is it because it's where it is located at in the downtown area? Let's put it that way, the historic area.
Yeah, from what I understand, the rail system will basically come down to almost where the harbor is. That's where it's going to basically end there.
Okay.
Just past the Wamsutta Mill, near where the parking lot for the whales.
Oh, the whales tooth, for the ferry.
Yeah, for the ferry. I think there's going to be a station there. There's going to be a station in the north end. There's going to be multiple stations in the city of New Bedford, from what I understand. I live in the north end, and I know not too far away from where I live, they're actually doing some groundbreaking area here where Julius Koch was
Church Street.
Church Street, exactly. Yeah. Right there. There's going to be a train station there. And then I believe at least, the one in near the whale's tooth, as you mentioned, there, at least that one there also. But I thought there was going to be a third one somewhere, maybe near the Freetown line, if I'm not mistaken. But it's definitely, I can attest, it's definitely, they are definitely doing a lot of construction here in the north end in regards to that station there. So it's definitely coming, sure.
No, that'll I think that'll make a huge difference. Now with you guys have been in constant flux because it was almost like the house that Jack built. You started off to accommodate one or two people, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, we don't have a real plan. We just can't keep slamming up walls because somebody's going to want to come in next door. And so now you guys are like, I hate to use the word grid system, but you guys are getting into some sort of a system, right? It's really, I mean, you really need to leave a trail of breadcrumbs to, getting to the building is easier than finding somebody in the building. So
That's always been something that, you know what I mean, we realize, you know, this, with a building this size and the amount of work to be performed and has been performed, there's always things that we're always improving upon. And that for sure is one. We're in the process of getting directories and signage up. We basically named our hallways after historical people and different things. Like we have a Union Street within within the Kilburn Mill. So there's all of our hallways are now named, and we have street signs up that kind of identifies what hallway you're in and what the name of it is. And forthcoming is going to be basically directories at intersections and in hallways, major, you know, entries and things of that nature that will be able to direct people into where they're looking to find, you know what I mean, what they're looking to look for. So we have a retail area, we have our artisan area, we have obviously our event center up on the 3rd floor. You know, you touched upon briefly as far as the amount of tenants that we have. I mean, there's such a huge different, you know, dichotomy of tenants in different uses. We have gyms, we have yoga studios, we have holistics, we have massage.
Tommy Crab.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have, you know, Crab Chiropractor, large tenant, brings in a lot of people, a tremendous, you know what I mean? Unbelievable how many people he sees in a day. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so many different, just a wide range of different diverse tenants that we have in the building, you know what I mean, at the Kilburn. It's just, it's
almost like the old neighborhoods.
To tell you, I was about to say, it's like a community within a community. It's a city within a city, you know what I mean, to tell you the truth. And that's, again, part of the vision and what I saw, that the potential of Kilburn being a destination point in New Bedford. You know what I mean? We have a 60,000 square foot antique shop downstairs in our building. You know what I mean? It brings people from all around. It brings people from the Boston area, from New York, you know what I mean? Tourists, you know what I mean? We have movie companies that come in and purchase items there at that antique shop for movie sets. You know what I mean? We had Hocus Pocus. They were filming that in Rhode Island. They bought a bunch of merchandise for that movie there. So, yeah, let's
give Nathaniel Ellis from Flip This Dollhouse.
Absolutely.
He's on a BBC production, right? His well, not him, but his Gothic, neo-Gothic, or Victorian dollhouse.
Yeah, he's been approached to do like a reality show. Absolutely. Nathaniel, absolutely, 100%. You know what I mean? He's got one of the largest dollhouse
emporiums.
Yeah, emporiums. Exactly. You know what I mean? Tremendous. I mean, I've been into his place and I look at some of the houses that he has there. It's like unbelievable. The detail on those dollhouses are unbelievable.
I'm assuming too, with all the Pepes and Vavus who doted on their granddaughters and built these things. You know, they were craftsmen in their own right. As they pass on, this stuff comes in the market, so it becomes a secondary market for what would ordinarily be secondary. I guess it's almost a primary market. And so he's got like tons of stuff. Let me give you an opportunity for a sales pitch, which, God, I don't think I've ever said that on 111 episodes. But for the artists listening to this podcast, what do you have to offer to the artists? We have emerging and established.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things, I mean, our building is just under 500,000 square feet. So if you think about that, that's unbelievable square footage and unbelievable sizes. We can offer a small, what we call artist pod, 250 to 300 square feet of space. If you're an up and coming, you just need a little bit of a nook to create artwork, or a little bit of the space to get out of a room in your home to be able to come out and have a peaceful, quiet space to create your artwork. We have that, and then from there on up from there, 400 square feet, 600 square feet, 800 square feet, 1,000 square feet, 1,200 square feet. We have so many different varieties of sizes of studios, depending on what a person's needs are. We can kind of offer that. And we're still customizing space, you know what I mean? With 500,000, just under 500,000 square feet, there's a lot of ability to customize spaces to tailor to what an individual or a company's needs are. And we're able to offer that. We're able to offer that.
One of the things I was thinking about, sculptors. Sculptors are that's probably the toughest discipline in the visual arts, because size, weight, founding, and all kinds of other things you have to do, and getting stuff in and out of a building. And my gosh, I mean, perfect.
One of the things with these older mill buildings, 16-foot ceilings. You know what I mean? Tremendous height. Speaking of artistry, we had unbelievably tremendous sculpture that once was in the building, Kelly Zellen. You know what I mean? You touched upon sculptures. Unbelievable. Going back to what we discussed once before, Jim Charette, that studio where he kind of like that open studio, or what he termed unopened studio at the time. And he just basically called to any artist that wanted to come in. We had about 6,000 square feet of space that wasn't doing anything. He asked, "Hey, do you mind if I use this for space for a week?" And they were like, "Go for it." You know what I mean? No worries. You know what I mean? And from there, you know what I mean? A bunch of artists came in. She was one of them, saw the potential, loved the space. Hey, how do I get my own space? You know what I mean? So from there, it turned out to a few tenants came from that, and her being one of them. And just your artwork, the artwork that she created, unbelievable talent.
I remember what she was doing with the steel wool, which was absolutely phenomenal. Ceramics, potters, can you accommodate them? I mean, like, kilns would be the thing, but I mean, you're fire rated, number one. Going back to sculptors, if I remember the rating, it's 100 pounds per square foot, which is incredible, isn't it?
These buildings are like, they're like tanks. You know what I mean? You can land an aircraft carrier on the roof of this building. It's unreal as far as the per square foot amount of weight that these buildings were built to last. And like, as I was saying, these things, you could never replicate a building like this. Just from, if you come into the Kilburn, look up, look at the wood, look at the timbers, look at the beams that this building has, a building like ours has. Our building, like I said, opened up in 1905. If you look up and you see the columns and the timbers and the building material, we have solid wood, southern pine solid wood columns, one piece, came from one tree that are 16 foot long.
First growth,
How old was that tree? Our building is, like I said, opened in 1905. How old was the tree that produced that timber, that piece of wood? You know what I mean? 200-300 years old. You know what I mean? Unbelievable. You know what I mean? Never to be replicated. You know what I mean? Never to be replicated.
Let's give the guys downstairs in the antiques area a pitch. I've been trying to get my friend Henry Hopper, who's an antiquarian. He's worked for the Ford family, worked in their mansions, either cleaning them out, moving them, redecorating, all kinds of stuff. He's a self-described fanatic in 18th and 19th century American furniture, and I keep telling them the treasures that are down there. It's not your average antiques kind of store, is it?
No, it's not. It has such a dichotomy, such a wide range. I mean, I've seen pieces in there from the 1600s. You know what I mean? Early American. You know what I mean? From the beginning of this country, where when people first started settling the United States. You know what I mean? We live in a very old part of the country where it was the first settlers that came over, the pilgrims and things of that nature. But I've seen items that old, 1600s, in that antique shop. The collectibles and more, vintage per se items, but you have such a wide range of antiques and collectibles and there's almost anything and everything that anyone could be, want or find interesting down there. You know what I mean?
How many business antique business is Jeff Costa still involved in the antiques business down there?
Yeah, he's actually, believe it, he had his own shop at one time at the Wamsutta
Yes.
mill complex, and they decided, the owners of that property decided to unfortunately convert the building that he was in into more apartments, and he transitioned over to the antique shop there at the Kilburn, and he's actually an active dealer there now. He sells his wares there along with other co-ops in the city, but he's there as part of the New Bedford Antiques at the Cove. He was a very integral part of New Bedford Antiques at the Cove before it came to the Kilburn Mill, where it once was where the Market Basket Plaza is presently.
In the Fairhaven Mills.
Yeah. Originally, New Bedford Antiques, before it came over to the Kilburn Mill, was basically in one of the mill complexes over there. And he was a property manager, a building manager of the building that the Bedford Antiques originally was in. The antique shop basically has been at the Kilburn Mill for the past 14 years. Previous to this ownership group, has been there for 14 years now. And it's flourished, it's grown. It's 60,000 square feet. Again, one of the largest indoor antique shops in southern New England, never mind New Bedford. And like I said, it attracts people from all around. Movie companies go there, purchase items for movie sets that are being filmed locally in the area. And it's been a very great attraction and draw for the Kilburn Mill for sure.
So you already told us what you had to offer, and if you had the magic wand, if the management, the partners in the business said, Peter, what do you think we need to make this even more successful? What is it that you think that you would need? I mean, I would like to see another 1 or 2 more restaurants, because this, to me, it's the old gas station formula. 1 gas station does okay, 2 gas stations do great, 3 gas stations do phenomenal. The 4th guy comes in, he's a loser. One of them is going to go out. And for some reason, it's it's a weird. It's one of
someone's
those
the odd man out, right? At one point or another.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, it's the one. Again, going back to the size of our property, the size of the building, just under 500,000 square feet. There's room for multiple different things. We've had multiple yoga studios, multiple gyms. There's room for a lot. You know what I mean? One of the things that I personally like to do is as I'm showing space and things of that nature, I'm not going to put anyone that's like-minded right next door to one another. You know what I mean? There's plenty of room to spread out and to diversify different areas, because we don't want the main focus of people coming into the building just to be in one particular entrance. You know what I mean? We want to diversify. We want to, as people come into the building, we want to spread them out. Hey, I'm always big on, hey, make sure you see our artisan in the far north end of the building. We have the antique shop downstairs in the basement. We have a retail area here. We want people to travel. We want people to explore the building and just see the wide diverseness of tenants and what different tenant may have to offer. You know what I mean? We have a crafting company. A person that deals with crafting, dealing more for kids. We have dance studios for kids. We have obviously artistry, the cafe, the antique shop, the gyms, the spiritual healing, the yoga studios, the chiropractor, Such a
Mind, body, and
diversity.
soul, huh?
Yeah, such a diverse group of tenants that we have, that we're fortunate, you know what I mean? And I say very, we're fortunate to have that such range of tenants, you know what I mean, that we have, that just so many different people coming in. Oh, I'm looking for this, I'm looking for that, you know what I mean? Right this way, you know what I mean? Go in this direction, you'll find that type of thing. So that's great. That's great to have, believe me.
What about residential? Is that in the cards, or is, from what I understand, the north part of the building, I guess where the mill offices was, I don't know if that's owned by you guys. That's another company, another concern, or I heard they
Yeah,
would have put in 80 units up there.
yeah. That's the sister mill to the Kilburn. It was part of originally the original in this back in the spinning days. The original owners, yeah, that was the sister mill. That mill opened up in 1910. Separate ownership group now presently, but yes, they are green lighted for housing in that particular building. It's not associated with us. It's not part of our property. But as
You
far
think
as the
it'll enhance your operation and vice versa, right?
absolutely, I don't see a negative in it, to tell you the truth. You know what I mean? It's all good, as they say. You know what I mean? It's all part of being a part of the community and embracing what comes by. You know what I mean? It's all looking at it from a positive sense, and how can this better us, and how can we partner with them and make the community around us a better place. You know what I mean? Working together. I'm always for working together. You mentioned Hatch Street, and there's, you mentioned the antique shop, there's the Cushnet River. Working together is always better than it's us against them. No, I don't look at it that way. I don't think that's the correct mentality to have, is how can we work together to better the community, to better what we're able to offer for everyone. I think working together is always more of a better philosophy than us against them philosophy. I don't subscribe to that.
Believe it or not, that was Berry Gordy's philosophy for Motown Records, where he said, everybody's in this together, and yeah, we can be competitors, but being competitors just makes us want to be better, because you have to have that little bit of competitiveness, in you, without steamrolling somebody over. But it's community, because we're all doing the same kind of thing,
Yeah, you have to have a little bit of an edge. I'm not gonna sit here and not say that we don't. You know what I mean? You have to have a little bit of a chip.
Yep.
Pardon the pun, but it's not your average run-of-the-mill person that's gonna be looking to buy a mill. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's
you have to be a little crazy, right?
Yeah, you have to have a little bit of excitement in you. You know what I mean? And listen, the ownership group that I'm fortunate to work under and work for has that little bit of an edge, but also wants to work together with other people, other business owners in the community, and make the area a better place.
Yeah,
that's at the end of the day. That's why when I go into work and I go into the Kilburn Mill, I wouldn't be there for 33 years, going on 34 now, if I didn't like what I was doing,
And the fact that you can deal with Peter. I've seen you in action. Oh my God, I mean, you get hit from all sides, and yet, you just like maintain a rhythmic heartbeat. And
I make myself available. You know what I mean? Sometimes a little bit too much certain days, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm vested in the place.
Yeah, I think you are. I think, well, after 30 plus years, a little bit of heart and soul is in there as well.
Yeah.
The garden, the sculpture garden, which was an almost came to fruition kind of thing. Where is that now?
We call it the courtyard. Yeah.
Courtyard.
Believe me, if you were to see the before and after, like, oh, wow. So it's such a unique place. The Lefkowitz, back when manufacturing. We had stitching shops. We alluded that before. We had some stitching shops back in the 60s, 70s up in the building.
Mhm.
You know, Madewell, you touched upon Madewell, Ginger Peach,
Oh, Ginger Peach, I
Macintosh.
remember. Yeah.
Yeah, Macintosh, you know, LTL Sportswear, a ton of manufacturing, clothing manufacturing that was in the building. They, you know, out of necessity, you know what I mean, with the second and third floor, the previous ownership group, Lefkowitz's, basically they built this huge ramp around back of the building that basically made the second floor almost like into a first floor where you can actually drive up to for shipping and receiving purposes of the second floor and third floor with some lifts and things of that nature. What that then did was kind of closed off an area of the property that it's a unique area where it's open to the sky, but it's surrounded by the building itself. So it's an enclosure, but with an open air feel to it. And it was kind of with the Lefkowitz, it was basically just a kind of like forgotten area. We didn't really do much of it. It was really overgrown with vines and weeds and things of that nature. And again, going back to this ownership group's vision to be able to see, again, pardon the pun, beyond the weeds and seeing the opportunity to create a special, unique space there. And like I said, to see the before and after pictures, night and day. And I mean, we built an entryway, basically took out a window, created a doorway, created a ramp, becomes handicap accessible. You know what I mean? It's just a unique industrial looking space, but, very, very unique, eclectic. We planted some grass seed. We made we put out some patio bricks out there. Just a unique, like I said, unique space that
it would be it'd be phenomenal if they could get a benefactor, like the Frost King Sculpture Garden. That's Frost King, the people who sell all that insulation stuff for the wintertime. And then there's a couple of others that seem to be underwritten by major manufacturers. That would be that would be another attraction, another magnet in that building.
100%. I mean, we see the potential, and we see that as these realizations come to us, and we see that opportunities come, present themselves, and we see that we're going to need a person that's going to be able to handle this. You know what I mean? We're going to be looking for a new art director in the very near future that's going to be able to take us to the next level and be able to explore these opportunities and go after certain things that will help facilitate these type of gardens and art displays and things of that nature. We spoke briefly with Luis. Luis had some ideas in regards to that particular space about doing some sculptures and doing some things out there. And yeah, it's.
I think the pandemic kind of took the buzz off of that, right? Yeah,
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
It definitely did.
We're gonna wrap this up because I could really just I mean, you've got to come back. That's for sure, because there's so much more. Would you consider the Kilburn to be an economic driver in its own right, because you're providing a platform for all these artists, for this emerging retail, I mean, it's a real hodgepodge, and I don't mean that in a negative sense.
Yeah, no,
it's an eclectic mixture. Let's use that better term, right?
There is a lot of entrepreneurship within the building, 100%. There's a lot of small, startups, tremendous amount. Kokaisha, First Edition, we've had a few tenants that have grown out of, not necessarily grown out of the Kilburn Mill, but had opportunities for other locations. First Edition, Mad Lila, different, as an example. And and I have so much respect and admiration for what where these particular people started out and where they're actually growing and growing their business. You know what I mean? There's such a tremendous amount of entrepreneurship, little, startup shops, you know what I mean? One owner, operations. That's the backbone, to tell you the truth, of Kilburn, is we're helping startup companies start their business, chase their dreams. And some of that is from COVID, to tell you the truth.
I was going to ask, that was my next question. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Did you see an uptick in business because of COVID?
COVID has definitely opened people's eyes to opportunity and to, one of the things that unfortunately COVID did, it took a lot of reality got flipped on its head. You know what I mean?
Reassessment.
And yeah, absolutely. And people understanding that, hey, I can control my destiny. I can control my fate. I can control my tomorrow, by taking control of myself and taking control of my economic, ability here by starting up my own company. I've always dreamed of doing this. And now, you know what I mean? Now is the time. You know what I mean? Now I'm gonna take control. This world is so chaotic in so many different directions. There's so much uncertainty that let me take control of what I can take control of, and let me do this. You know what I mean?
Great resignation, as they've called it. So many people are just saying bye-bye. And I've spoken with young couples who couldn't figure out for the life of them why one of them had to be laid off because there was no way they could even do remote or anything like that. And then at the end of the month, they're doing their household finances and they're like, how are we like 25, 30, 40, $50 ahead? Of it doesn't make any sense. Then it struck them. We're working. Both of us are working. The quality of our life is not wonderful with two people working, especially for our children. And we're paying other people to watch our children, and we're paying other people to watch our pets. How stupid is that?
The light bulb moment came. You know what I mean? The epiphany and the light bulb moment. You know what I mean? It's amazing how sometimes you don't understand. A blessing comes in so many different forms. You know what I mean? And again, you got to look at my point of view is always looking at trying to take positives away from things. And you know what I mean? If this COVID has brought anything positive, it's been like an epiphany moment for a lot of different people that I can handle things. I can do more. I'm better than what I thought I was. You know what I mean? I can take on things more than what I thought I could. So,
well, I want to tell you, Peter Andrade, you have the best seat in the house to watch the growth of the creative community, which is now it is a force to be reckoned with. I mean, we had whaling, we had textiles, we had the schmata business, the apparel business, and now we've got the art business, and it is a business, and it's obviously.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can't have this many artists renting that much space between you and other places if they're not making money.
Yeah, I mean, New Bedford, again, going back to the city of New Bedford, the potential, the tremendous, our city is a great city. You know what I mean? I'm a champion of the city. I love the city. I love what the city has to offer. And how many different times has the city been reincarnated from whaling to textile to the richest seaport
I've got fishing. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the richest seaport in the country for many consecutive years, I might add. You know what I mean? To the art that's tremendously, the rich art that is coming, that the talent that is in this city is unbelievable. Very, very underrated or under the radar. But the amount of talent that is in this city from an art standpoint is unbelievable. Unbelievable. I can speak for what I've seen personally at the Kilburn Mill, and it's unbelievable amount of talent that's within this city. Unbelievable.
Yeah, like I said, you got the best seat in the house.
Yeah.
I'm going to wrap it up, Peter. Thank you so very much.
I appreciate you.
Folks, we're wrapping up another episode of the Artists Index in Focus podcast. And we had a tremendous conversation here with Peter Andrade, who is the property manager for the Kilburn Mill, which is a fast rising mecca and almost an epicenter in its own way for the artist community. So with that in mind, see ya next time on the Artist Index. Bye-bye.
The South Coast Artist Index podcast is brought to you in part by Heavenly Spirits, who invites you to celebrate the art of life and creative communities everywhere. Learn more at heavenlyspirits.com. To learn more about the South Coast Artist Index, visit theartistindex.com. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Be the artist you believe you are, and let's take care of each other out there.